In part 3, I had mentioned that I also used the router inlay kit to make my building molds and my bending forms. It's basically this. It's exactly the same principle. You have a guitar body mold, then you use the router kit in the same order to produce a intermediate mold or template. And then the intermediate template used with the bushing on produces the, well, let's call it the negative image of the mold. This becomes the template for your outside building mold. You just take that to the router tape. Now as a result, when this outside template is cut, that leaves a scrap piece which would have been here, which would have been undercut by 1/8 of an inch due to the thickness of the router bit. So if you change your bushing size, or rather your collar size on your router, or your diameter of your router bits, you can get to a point of making the undercut piece the size that you need for your bending form. This is my bending form, and the difference in space, as you can see, is I forget exactly what it is, but it makes up for a blanket in the thickness of the body size. But that's how it relates. So now for a closer look of the saddle slotting jig. As you can see, here's the piece that I cut from the inlay template, and what I've done is angled it. This piece in particular, I angled it as my slope for my slot, for my saddle slot, the angle, the compensation slope. It's just the template or the mold screwed down to some melamine, 3 holes so I could later eject the workpiece, and I've put 2 locating pins that hold the top, and the top just consists of a straight slot cut. I believe this is a 5/16 OD also collar that I use on my router with an 1/8 inch bit, the same as the inlay kit. So I put my work piece in there, and then I just have the pins down, and then you saw the operation. What I've done here, I take 3 passes when I do the slot with a yeah, here it is. It's 5/16 OD collar. I write that on there so I remember that. Once you get over 50, you start to forget stuff. And I put the bit and saddle slot. But right here, I've done 3 holes. I also put on there, and for each pass, I've set my router with the depth of each pass, and I plunged it down in there. And then as the second pass I set it, I put it in there, and then the third pass final was there. That way when I want to set the height, all I have to do is put it in there and lower the bit till it starts to raise and lower it down, and that's how I set my heights of my router bit depth. The other jig consists also of that template, but this is the jig that I use for drilling, where my actually it would be, if you had a pin bridge, you could use it for your pinned bridges where your pins would go, but on a pinless bridge of this design, they are to be at a 25-degree angle. So what you can see here, what I did was I took some 3/4 MDF, and I took it to the bandsaw and set it at 25 degrees and made the cut, and from the 2 pieces formed this. And then I screwed another MDF 3/4 on there, then that. And Then I squared it up on the table, squared the sides up. Then the cover that goes on it also has 2 pins, and it has the pin depths. I have different depth each pin location. These 2 are the same, these 2 the same, and these 2. I've made some more depth gauges here on it. So when I use my plunge router, I plunge down as you saw in the operation. That's pretty much how it works out. And the third jig, which is on the mill, is just basically it's this, but it's cut at a 15-degree angle instead of a 25-degree angle. In case you're wondering how I located these holes, it was a slow process. I had the original template that I had marked holes on where I wanted the holes to be, and then I set this in my mill. You could use a drill press also, something that's clamped down. And what I would do is put a small bit in there and run the drill press down to center it over where my center mark was with a small bit. And then I took out the small bit. I put this on. This is being clamped. And then I put the top part on. And then I used a 3/8 Forstner bit, and I drilled down through. This uses a 3/8 collar I used. And then I took it off and moved it over to this hole, did the same hole to the depth, and that's how I did it. It was the easiest way to locate it for me and the fastest. Now if you're doing a pin bridge and you want to put your holes and use this method, or instead of a drill press, you could easily just incorporate it into this fixture too, the saddle fixture. You just put your holes back here, because on a regular pin bridge you don't need the 25-degree angle as you needed with this, with the pinless bridge. I thought I should let you know about that. Okay, let's take a closer look at the wing forming jig. This idea I got from Mike Dolan, and if you go to that site and look up the pinless bridge, you'll see his methods. And I got this idea from him. And it's basically a couple 2x4s and some 1/8 by 1 inch steel bar. I just clamp it to my oscillating spindle sander. In my case, my sander has a 1-degree slope on it for some reason instead of being square, so I had to cut the 2x4s at 1-degree slope so that this would actually be perpendicular to the spindle itself. Once I mounted it and had it set where I wanted it, I drilled down through the cast iron and with 1/4 inch, and I used these 1/4 inch carriage bolts as pins to relocate it later when I use it. So it just comes off. And there you can see, pretty simple. It's a little bit close there where it rubs, but this is the stop when I push in, and just adjust that to your needs. Nice, easy, simple jig. Does a good job though. Well, that about wraps up the jigs. The only other jigs I have were shaping, were the sanding, the thickness sanded, and to form the front curved edge, and the radius sanding dish. But I think you've seen enough of sanding. That's and the radius, making the radius dish, all that. That's on the other videos. So I hope you gained something from this and some insight into using the inlay kit as a valuable tool for making the templates. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.